how to use the clone stamp tool, as well as a review of how to resize images. I've got two images here of Michael Jackson, one old and one new. First thing I want to do is I want to resize them. Now I always check out the pixel dimensions of each image, so I can see that this is 1080 by 1440, and this one here is 1200 by 900. So they're different sizes. I want to make them the same, and for today's purpose I'm going to use the crop tool, and I'm going to resize them at 1050 pixels by 1500 pixels, 300 pixels per inch. Notice I've selected the width by height by resolution, and you have to enter in the px, not centimeters or anything, and make sure that it's 300 pixels per inch. So this works for me. I can move this image around if I want. Ooh. And let's see. So I can make this bigger or smaller, and I can move the image around inside of it. And I'll go something like this, and when I'm happy with that crop, I click the execute command. And another way to actually find the pixel dimensions is usually you can click down here. If I click and hold, it'll give me the width and height. Now for this one, I'm going to do the same thing for. And I can move it around. I can make it a little bit smaller. And that looks about right. So I've now resized both of these images. Now I'm going to take some of the pixels from this image of Michael Jackson, and I'm going to place them onto this image of Michael Jackson. And I'm going to do that using the clone stamp tool. So here's what I like to do. And this image is where I will be putting the pixels from the other picture. So usually with Photoshop, I always like to unlock the layer by clicking the little lock in the layers palette. Then I will create a new layer. You can see that this is now the new layer. It's active. It's clear. There's nothing on it. And coming back over here, now I'm going to select the clone stamp. Now that's right over here. And so I select that. And I can adjust the size of my brush. Right now you see that's the size of my brush. The same as I've done with any of the other brushes. I like to have my hardness around 50%. That dictates how harsh or how hard the edges of the brush are. So if you wanted to have a soft fade out from the center, you change your hardness. This is about a good size for me. You can also change the size of the brush using the bracket keys. Now in order to tell Photoshop what you'd like to copy, you have to hold down the Option key, and that'll give you these little crosshairs. Then you click and let go of the Option key. Now inside your paintbrush you can see what, when you click and drag, will be left where you do it. So you can actually move pixels from one image to a different place on the same image. But again, I always like to create a new layer to put those pixels on, and I'll show you why here. So I have to, you got to make sure that you're sampling pixels from a layer that's active. So here we go. Option, click, let go of the key, and now if I want to leave them on this layer, I just click and drag, and you can see it's copying those pixels. And if I want to, I can just turn that layer on or off. So if I'm unhappy with it, I could just click and drag it to the trash. But I'll leave it here for now. The beautiful thing is this brush actually remembers the pixels it's selected. So I can go back to another image, and I can actually put the pixels from this image over here onto this image here as well. There we go. So that's new Michael Jackson eye on old Michael Jackson. Now if I want to change this, or if the size is not quite correct, I can do that very easily. Notice I left it onto the newer layer here, so if I don't like it, I can always just get rid of the layer. If I need to change the size of this, I can use the Move tool, and I make sure that I've got Show Transform controls on. I always turn off Auto Select. But now what I can do is I can rotate this a little bit, I can move it around, and I can even enlarge it if I want. Now if I don't want it to get all squashed, I hold down the Shift key. There we go, and once I'm happy with that, I hit the check mark. So this is a good example of using the clone stamp tool. And what you want to do next is you want to make sure that you save this image. You can save it as a Photoshop document if you want to come back and if you want to maintain the layers. And then you can also save it as a JPEG. And this will be one of the parts for completing the Rather Fun project. So File, make sure that you save it in the correct space that your instructor has told you to save it in.